What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Swan Hockey Live. I am joined by Don Kirnan. Don, how's it going?
Very good.
Awesome. For everyone that's new here, welcome. This is completely interactive. Feel free to drop your comments, ask questions, join the conversation. Don is joining us tonight. Very grateful for his time. Don has over 40, right? Over 40 years junior hockey experience, Don. 10 years with USA Hockey Junior Council, 10 plus years head of New York State, junior hockey coordinator. And, today Don is the commissioner of the Federal Prospects Hockey League, a single A professional hockey league in the United States. And we're bringing Don on here tonight because of Don's experience and to, again, a lot of what we're doing right now at Swan Hockey and with this podcast is breaking down a lot of the walls and barriers that exist in junior hockey and trying to, just trying to break down those walls and open everything up and let everybody, see more and learn more and try to make better decisions. And Don has obviously a ton of insight, and we're, again, happy and grateful that he's joining us here tonight to share that perspective, share that insight with all of you. So get involved. Let us know where you're commenting from. Again, let us know the part of the country or which country. Let us know the team, the league, where you're coming from. It'll help drive the show. It'll help us tailor it a little bit to the people that are in here tonight with us live. And Don, why don't you start us off? A little bit about yourself. More than I just gave. And let's see where this goes.
Sure. My parents are originally from Montreal. I was born in the United States, but obviously, come from a hockey background. And we always, from the time that we started, we were looking for, what is an opportunity and how do we get to the next level. And when I started at Syracuse in the mid 80s, there was really no opportunities. And we had to change a lot of things, and over a period of 7 to 10 years with the Syracuse Stars, which I founded, we cracked into the elite status. And towards the end of the 90s, we were acknowledged as one of the top 10 associations in the country. They didn't say who was 1 and who was 10, but we were mentioned with just 10 organizations were mentioned. We had over 24 guys drafted in the NHL. At least half of those guys played in the NHL. We also did girls hockey. I won national titles with the U19 twice out of New York, and no one's done it since or before then. So we've had great success with both the women's and the men's, and we are used to, misinformation, from junior people and some good information from junior people. So it's hard as you go through the process. There's certainly more teams than when we started back in the mid 80s. There was probably about 15% as many teams as there is now. So it's different. It's more difficult right now. But I would say to a player or a parent, it's a question of how hard you're willing to work, and trying to get the information, I guess, is a problem. I had a Bantam team that had 5 players from the one Bantam team that were drafted in the NHL. So obviously it was a very good team. But the practices were really intense because everybody on that team wanted to show how good they were, and they wanted to be classified as the best player. And what I learned from the guys that made it and didn't make it, there's competitive, there's super competitive, then there's insane competitive. And what I learned from coaching great players, the guys that made it were all super and insane competitive.
Yeah.
So that's something that, it's keep in mind as you start going through, the process, how hard you have to work in order to make it. And and that's something that parents and have to be involved. Obviously, like there are players that lived in Rochester that would drive. Um, their kids would play. They played in the NHL. I don't want to throw out a lot of names, but the one guy, he ran a hardware store. He would drive to the game at Boston College and then drive home and didn't sleep. He just worked the next day. So the parent did that, and they were basically players that and parents that would drive 2 and 3 hours to every practice that we had 3 times a week. So sort of tremendous amount of dedication from both the players and the parents that made it. Many of them became millionaires from it, but it just shows you the type of dedication and how hard people had to work in order to make it. And that's, I don't agree with giving any misinformation to anybody. I think that's, you have one career, and there's a lot of people that I found over the 20, 30, 40 years doing this that give out misinformation. And sometimes they don't do it maliciously. Sometimes they do. But I know,
100%.
I know very little about tennis. I wouldn't be crazy enough to advise somebody on how to make it in tennis. But that doesn't stop other people that have never had a player that played Division I hockey, never had a player that played in the NHL hockey, advise people. And I find that irritating for me, because there's plenty of people that are willing to tell people what to do that have never done anything, never had any players do anything. And that's, as a parent or as a player, I would caution somebody who you're taking your advice from, and who have they placed and what have they done, because I think that's an important aspect as you go through this process. You have one career, and it's easy. I've had players that made the national team, and one Ivy League school said to the player, again, I don't want to bring up Ivy League schools and say who it was, but he made the 16, 17-year-old national team. One Ivy League coach that I knew said, tell him to go to me because I play his style. He decided to go to a different Ivy League school, and he was on that team with the 5 NHL draft picks, and he didn't get drafted, and he was just as good as anybody else that was on that team. So by even making the wrong move to the wrong Ivy League school can derail somebody's opportunities. So,
well, because you always want to be in a position to succeed, right? And like, I think that's something that a lot of people don't take the time to look into is, the actual fit or the style of play, right? Like if we're talking junior hockey here, every junior league has a little bit of a different style of play, and there's certain players that'll be more successful in certain leagues, versus others. And I feel like a lot of players, a lot of parents, they don't look into that enough. They just make decisions based off of marketing or what what the quote unquote cool spot is or what the cool kids are doing. And they're not actually looking like, okay, where do I fit? Where am I going to have the greatest chance to succeed at what I do well, right? You're always going to be best at what you do well. So if you could put yourself in a situation,
that's very intelligent statement, because if you are an elite offensive player and you're playing for a coach that's playing a very defensive style, he's going to negate what your asset was. And that's actually what happened with this player.
Right. And that was going to be my point, is like, not only, are different leagues, different styles, but you could take that a step further with different coaches within the same leagues. Right. Correct. And that's why it's, it's style of play, and it's also in, personality too, right? There's certain players that do well, do better with certain personality coaches and others. So there's a lot that comes into this when making that decision of where should you go, where should you play, who should you play for. And I think a lot of people miss that. They just see the, few letter, the alphabet soup of the league of what it's called, and go, oh, yep, no, I'm going there. I have to go there. It has to be there. I think that a lot of people miss the boat on that, and they actually are their own worst enemy in that aspect.
Well, it's hard. It's a very for a parent that that has not played, or they don't have the right feedback or the right reconnaissance and information at their disposal. That is hard. That's where they need the advice of someone that's can figure this out, because I've seen people. There was a player that was drafted in the first round of the NHL, and he wanted to play another year of college. And I told his father, I said, "We should just go, because the clock ticks." A lot of people don't realize that once you sign your contract, I think it's 4 years or 5 years before you can get your second contract, and it's totally negotiable. But to make a long story short, he did eventually. He only played a year in college, but every game that he played in college cost him $210,000.
Right. And a lot of people, and that's something actually you told me, a bit ago on the phone, that I'm like, oh yeah, like that, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that, most people don't realize that either. I mean, why don't you dive into that a little bit deeper? Cause I'm sure even after hearing I'm sure that people even after hearing you say that are still a little confused. Like, all right, how does a college game cost $210,000? You want to dive into that a little deeper and elaborate on it?
Sure. There's, once you sign, what they say, the clock ticks, then you have that opportunity where you get to the second contract, and it's totally negotiable. And, right now the average, if he's an elite player, is going to be in the $4 to $6 million range. And so if he's hindering that, if he's waiting a year to go there, it cost him $4 million. Down the road to play those games. And
right.
So when you back that out and you start dividing out how many games you played, it's a substantial difference. It's a lot of people don't realize how the drop off goes too. If you're a first line NHL guy, you're getting paid a certain amount of money. If you're a fourth line guy, you're getting 10% of that. If you go down to AHL, you're getting 10% of that. So you go to Europe, and you're basically, the top guys are getting paid a little bit more than they are in the AHL if they're in the top, leagues in Europe. So and when you go below that, it's actually you're getting paid, but you're not getting paid a lot of money. And it's a question of whether you enjoy it, you want to play in front of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 fans, which a lot of people want to do, and that's kind of what we did with the Federal League. Is we have players that basically want to continue playing. It's a lot of fun to play in front of thousands of fans, especially if you played in a college or somewhere where there's 100 fans that would watch you play, and you go to a place where there's 4,000 or 4,500 fans play. It's exciting, and it's a lot of fun for the players.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I remember the game that when I was up there with you guys a couple of years ago. When I stayed a week up there, and like the atmosphere of your game was unbelievable. It was something that doesn't exist, I would say, in most junior hockey markets, that's for sure, and probably most college markets too.
It's up to the player and the family, and but I do think there are ways that if you're not going to make it to the top levels of hockey, then you look at what do I want to do? If I want to go to college, that's fine. You can go to college part-time. You can go to college, or wait until you're done with college, and then if you want to play. That's why our leagues exist. That's why the SP exists, and the East Coast League exists also. For guys that want to have an opportunity to try to work their way up from there. But it's if you're not drafted, and if you're not playing at a real high level, it's going to be hard to work your way up to the NHL. They don't give you as many years as baseball does. But it doesn't mean that you can't have fun and still keep on playing for a while.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like you compare baseball to hockey, or really any other sport to hockey, and hockey is completely different. And that's why this whole, because hockey has junior hockey, and that's why we're doing what we're doing now, because it's different, it's weird, it's confusing, it's maybe not even completely understood why it even exists. And again, like, it's funny you say that because it all just ties in. Going, back to junior hockey, that, like baseball, their minor league system is completely different because they don't, guys are going from high school to college to pro, where here we have junior hockey, which is the whole, why we're doing what we're doing right now, because it is confusing. It is different. It is weird. It is, and I think one of the key points, like what you mentioning, working your way up from, single A up to double A and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important for people to realize that, hey, the process just repeats itself, right? So any adversity you're going through in junior hockey, the idea is that you learn a lesson here on the smaller stage so you could handle it later on the bigger stage, in college or in pro hockey. It's the same game, every level. It's just the same. And, it's it's the same game every level. It's just different levels.
For sure.
So I think that's important for people, to realize that, hey, like you have to learn how to navigate this. You have to learn how to navigate this. You have to learn how to think for yourself. You have to learn how to, how to be mentally tough, because you're never going to get away from it, right? Once you finally crawl through the mud in junior hockey, well, guess what? Now it's time to crawl through the mud again in pro or in college. And if it's college and you're going to move on to pro, well, again, now it's time to crawl through the mud again, right? So it's like, you have to learn how to do this now. And if you are able to do it accurately and, navigate it, there's less mud to crawl through. So again, like, that's the whole point of this kind of stuff. Do you want to get into a little bit of, your experience, like, with USA Hockey and with the old, your time, obviously you had the Empire Junior Hockey League, which now merged with the USPHL. You had the team in the old EJ, which merged with the USPHL. Do you want to talk about maybe some of the stuff behind the scenes, or even just how things,
Sure.
I guess were different back then, and how, because I think even though things were different back then, I think they still exist the same way today, but there's just that other layer of crap over the top with a lot of stuff. Like, I think those powerhouse programs and everything, in terms of how they recruit, how they do all that stuff, I think that stuff is all still there. It's just buried in, underneath all the fluff of some of this other stuff going on today. And obviously junior hockey's, oversaturated, watered down, at least at the lower levels, right? At least at, like, tier 3, some of the lower end, tier 2, maybe.
Well, there's
want to get into some of that
reason for that. And I was really very close with the head of junior hockey for 15 or 20 years. There was a person out of Iowa, Dave Tyler, that ran junior hockey for, I think, 25, 30 years. And when we won our the regular season championship, it was a small league called the Northeast Junior League. The president of New York State told me during the summer meeting, we lost to Amherst, which was in the playoffs, and they won the national championship for Junior B, the national championship at that time in 1985. And the president of New York State took me aside and he said, well, Amherst used a bunch of illegal players to beat you in the then back in 1985. Nobody knew how to check ages of players, so it was the Wild West. You didn't know who you were playing. So he came in, cleaned up everything. He lasted until, I think, for 20, 25 years. Then Danny Esdale took over. He was running the EJ, and I was pretty much his right-hand man during that time. The one mistake, USA Hockey obviously always has the World Junior team, the national team, and that's their focus. And in 85, they still had one national team. They still have one national team now. The difference is there's thousands and thousands of junior players that didn't exist in 85. The other thing is when you go to Europe and you play against a 14-year-old team or a 13-year-old team or whatever, that is a paid coach. That is a national coach. That's somebody that really, when you play, I was in the Czech Republic just before the virus, and their top teams are just as good as any AAA team in the United States. and at the youth level up, but they don't have volunteer coaches. They only have a country of 9 million people, and they're very competitive. Playing against Canada or the U.S. and they just don't have the same coaching. They have superior coaching at every level. If you're a young person, and what USA Hockey still doesn't understand is if you're 13, 14, or 15 years old, if you're in New Jersey or Boston or some of the hockey centers, more than likely there's some really good AAA programs around, but still 75% of the country, you probably had terrible coaching. You probably didn't have an opportunity to play. And when your child reaches a certain age, you can either give them an opportunity to play junior hockey. As a husband and wife is looking at the child, say, I think he has some ability, and they want to invest in that. And that's why there's so many player and teams. And USA Hockey can't figure that out. They figured out that they feel that if you're not a superstar at 15 years old, just forget about it, which they should, they're a governing body. They should just do the opposite. They should really encourage developmental hockey and junior hockey because, they do have the National Development Program, which I was there when they started that I coached at the Olympic Festival in the early 90s. I coached at, national level teams. So I understand what they tried to do, but they didn't perform. They didn't do the things that they didn't understand. And I still don't think they just shake their head now how many teams there are, but there's a need for all those teams because the kids basically want an opportunity. Now, the problem for the parents is where they need some advice and they need some things is that there's hundreds of teams that they can go to. But they, trying to find the right match and some things that you talked about a few minutes ago, that's the hard part. I don't think USA Hockey is doing the right job in encouraging everybody to develop and give themselves a chance. That's the biggest problem that I see. And, we ran a youth hockey program, and there was 2 kids that had an issue with the Bantam major coach. They both got cut. They both decided to play junior B with us. Both got drafted in the NHL, but they were both cut from their Bantam major team. So it just shows that, somebody knows what they're doing, can pick up that player and make something happen where somebody just threw the player away. And that's,
and for those out there that don't know, so junior B was before there was tier 3. So tier 3, before it was called tier 3, pretty much was called junior B. And honestly, I would say the junior B back then was better. I mean, guys were committing Division I NCAA right out of junior B. It was much tighter.
I named the champion of the national championship. Yeah. Well, to Edsel, Jack Eichel was playing.
John G says, "Hi, Don."
Hi.
Is that John Gurkis?
I don't know. But anyway, Jack Eichel played junior B with the Junior Bruins, and he won a national title in one of the tournaments I was running. So it's it really, you're right. Junior B at that time, when we had a lot of guys that were, ended up getting drafted. They played, somewhere, and then there was a junior C league, the Continental League, that also had 30 teams.
Yeah, Sarge's league. I played in that.
Sarge Richards was the commissioner of that. He's my vice commissioner with Federal Prospects Hockey League now, and but there's the B level was a bit higher at that time. There were fewer teams. I think there's more teams now. I think the level is not quite as strong. And of course, when you only had 40 or 50 junior teams, the level was higher than when there's 200 or 300.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's definitely like watered down now, but Yeah, no, things were definitely different back then. Did you see what USA Hockey is doing now with the NTDP and Major Junior?
Yes, and that's been going on for, I've been involved in several meetings with when a kid was 15 years old and he had to decide whether he's going to
No,
go.
no, no. I'm saying they're doing a prospects challenge now, like an
No,
NHL
I
prospects
realize
challenge.
that, but it's really been a war that's been going on for 30 years.
Yeah.
Where
I think some of the USHL guys are pissed that that USA Hockey like didn't include the USHL and it's just the NTDP.
yeah, it's no, it's going to be um, it's a uh, huge money thing. There's a lot of money going back and forth. The average, many of the major junior teams in the OHL have a budget higher than the AHL's budgets. I mean, you're talking about some serious money
Oh,
out
I
there.
believe it. Like I know Moncton, one of the scouts for Moncton in the queue very well. Like I think their locker room, I think he was telling me it was like $2 million their locker room. Like he was in to talk with my pre-draft team back in May. He's going to talk to our guys, this week at the Junior Chowder Cup, and yeah, like the budgets are insane. Like I think their locker room alone was like $2 million. I think I think was a little over $1 million, something like that.
Oh yeah, it's so that's what you're competing with, and players have to make that decision. Um, and we had a lot of players that decided to go major when our guys were really good 20, 25 years ago. The USHL was not anywhere near as good as it is now. Most of my guys, they either decided to go major junior or they went the Division I route, but most of them never played in the USHL. The USHL was not strong enough at that time to lure our players over there. I think today, there would be a lot more guys from New York going there. But 20, 25 years ago, they weren't the same as they are now.
Yeah, I would say that kind of died with the old EJ.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the old EJ, some of the programs in that league were able to retain players from going to the USHL.
yeah,
Like the USHL was still clearly a better league, but I think that there were some programs that they were pumping out so many D1 commitments that the kids were like, hey, listen, like I get it, it's a better league, I can go play there, or I could just stay 5 minutes from my house and play here and commit Division I here too. you know. But like and I don't know exactly what happened. I mean, I'd be interested in your thoughts on that because obviously you were, you know, I'd imagine in some closed door meetings and stuff when the EJ transitioned over to NCDC. But I think that, I think a lot of that, like I said, like I think a lot of that, guys staying out here for the old EJ or to play on the East Coast as opposed to going to USHL, at least, prior to the NA coming out here, in terms of like, tier 3, because the old EJ technically was a tier 3 league back when tier 3 was different than what it is today. But like, I think that mentality kind of died with the old EJ.
Well, when the USHL went tier 1 and back right around the turn of the century, the both the North American League and the USHL were both tier 1, and it was deemed by USA Hockey and the people that one was going to be tier 1 and the other was going to be tier 2. When the North American was designated tier 2, they nearly died 2 or 3 times in the first year or two. They came within an hour of dying. The North American League back then, because they were tier 1. They were behind the USHL, but they were close to the USHL. What happened was when the USHL went tier 1. This sounds insane, but they didn't know what tier 1 was, and USA Hockey didn't know what tier 1 was, although they decided to do it. They didn't understand the rules of tier 1. They didn't understand that it's a younger league, and they didn't understand that the key to tier 1 was your 16, 17-year-old players. That's who everybody's there to watch, and the pre-draft guys. They didn't know that when it sounds ridiculous. I knew more about Tier 1 because I had players playing in Tier 1 than the USHL did. And I went into many private meetings and explained to them what Tier 1 was. The biggest mistake that they made when they first started was they didn't understand the role of NHL agents in this. And I was at the NHL draft with a couple of my players from Boston in the late 90s. And, IMG, which represented the Sundins and was Wayne Gretzky and everything else. And I was talking to them. They didn't even know the USHL went Tier 1 at the draft. And now the agents are totally wrapped into the USHL, and it's 100% different. And they've really taken control of the players and the talent, and they work hand in hand with any of it. But they were totally uninformed when they set up Tier 1. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into.
So what do you mean? Like they were trying to mirror the CHL without fully knowing what exactly the CHL was doing or how they were doing it, or kind of like the thought process.
It sounds insane. It sounds insane, but they knew about 5% of what the CHL was doing when they said we're going to go Tier 1. They had no idea. And the only reason I knew is because I had players playing major junior, so I knew exactly what they were doing. And I actually, maybe 3 or 4 USHL commissioners, I remember jotting down about 10 things that they had to do. The next meeting, 8 out of the 10 things was on their docket to be voted on. They didn't know basically what Tier 1 was when they joined it. They didn't get the agents involved. They didn't understand the whole process. They clearly do, because the last 3 or 4 or 5 meetings, because I went to the, because I was on the council, I was at all the national meetings, and you saw all the agents, and I knew all the agents because they were with our players. I mean, Bobby Orr was with one of our players, and Wayne Gretzky took one of our players out for dinner. His parents took him out for dinner, so they're both vying for the same player.
Oh, nice.
So that was those were the top guys, and so we knew exactly what they were doing. We knew exactly what was happening. Nobody talked about the USHL. They weren't really in the picture back then, but they are now. They're right there, and they're going to do more and more things to compete. And it's hard because you're competing with a $3 million budget. And
the USHL and major junior, I don't even think it, like, to me, I don't, like, they're different. Like, I don't think you can compare them. Like, I think some people say that the USHL is just as good as the major junior. Like, in my mind, not a chance. Like, and I'll tell you why. Like, my feeling, and the USHL is phenomenal. Like, they're phenomenal at what they do. It's a different model, right? Because here's the thing: when a major junior player doesn't make his NHL team, right? A lot of those guys that come back to major junior, when a USHL player is that good but doesn't make his NHL team, he doesn't go back to the USHL. He goes to college, right? So it's almost impossible to become top end in the USHL because you leave and go to college if you're not ready for the NHL, right? Where the major junior, you don't, right? So I just don't think the USHL has those top end players like major junior does. Because again, once you get good enough, you leave. Where in major junior, you don't, right? If you force every junior age eligible player, if you force all those guys to leave the NCAA and come back and play in the USHL, you force them to do it, then yeah, I think it'd be every bit as good. But that's not the way it works, right? It's just different.
It's not the way it works. But
and then to your point, the budget.
I don't like the misrepresentation of major junior. There's, the Quebec League is a good league, and 100% of the kids that are signing with them are saying that's your pathway to the NHL. And if you look at the NHL draft list, how many guys got drafted, it's not great. It's a very small percentage of guys that get drafted. They will get, their college or partial, because colleges are a lot less expensive in Canada. And so if they will partake with that, I think that's my what I used to advise our guys is if you are going to safely, and it's a hard to guess at 16 years old, are you going to be in the first 2 rounds of the NHL draft? And I told guys at that time, if you're going to be in the first 2 rounds, take a shot to go major junior, because you have an opportunity to make it. And most of the guys that listened to me that I told them to go, they all played a little bit in the NHL, and they did make it. I think if you're below the second round, I think you shouldn't throw away college opportunity at that time, because your chances of making it is going to be a lot less.
It's interesting, like especially like now with the, I mean, it's looking like that the rule is going to change and the kids will be eligible for college. Like that's going to shake up a lot.
Yes.
So it's just it's just like weird, but like interesting times that we're in.
Yeah, Ron DiGregorio told me 10 years ago, the head of the president of USA Hockey, Ron DiGregorio, they call him Digger. He said when that day happens, that'll be the end of college hockey as they know it. It may not be, but that's what he told me 10 years ago. They knew it was coming 10 years ago. He says, but when it happens, it'll be the end of the road for college hockey. But it may not be. But that's what he told me.
We have a comment coming in here for you. It says, "Hey Don, how much of an impact did the fans have to get the league to change the rule back last season?"
The rule back for what?
I'm not sure. Sam, if you can elaborate a little bit, and give us more context. Guys, again, if for those that are watching on Instagram, we cannot see the Instagram comments. So if you want to comment, it's best to do it on YouTube, Facebook, or in the live podcast channel of the Swan Hockey Discord. Those are going to be the 3 ways to communicate with the show. Instagram comments we're not able to see right now. So you can still watch on Instagram, and it will, but you can, if you want to interact, do it on YouTube, Facebook, or through the Discord. And Sam, if you're still here, if you could just elaborate on what rule you're asking Don about. But yeah, guys, if you're, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Like if you're enjoying us, give a, give us a thumbs up here, share the video. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Sam says, regarding the rules about suspending coaches for players' actions. I don't know if you want to get into that or not. Like, I do want to keep it on topic of junior hockey, guys, but Don, I'll let you take that one if you want to get into that or not.
What we were concerned about was coaches that were creating issues with having players go after other players. If we threatened to suspend the coaches, and it worked, it stopped. I mean, we did change the rule, but it was something. So what was happening was there were some players that were injured because other players were going after them, and it was determined that they were told to go after them. So we had to do something to protect the players, and it worked. We did it for a few weeks, and the message got sent home, and we did it. And we're growing. We're up to 14 teams right now. When we started the league 15 years ago, I think our total attendance was 50,000, and this year we'll cross the 1 million threshold. So we're working our way up.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, like there's so many, like I talk to Smitty about it all the time. Like there's so many leagues that don't, that never last more than 5 years, so to create a professional league and have it go for, you're going in your 15th season now, you said?
Yeah, there's 8 leagues since World War I. It's the current 5 and 3 others that have lasted past 10 years. We're one of the 8.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's not that easy. I will tell you that getting players to the NHL, getting players to, in our heyday, 1% of the players playing in the NHL were playing for our program, which was 6 or 8 players a night. So
We're in Syracuse.
Just Syracuse, yeah. We had 1%. We're playing any given night in the NHL, and that was less difficult than trying to keep this league going.
Yeah, but the show always goes on. It's always
this is much harder.
Yeah. How do you compare running and starting this league like with the old Empire Junior B League?
When you get into professional hockey, you can do almost anything in junior hockey and nobody knows about it. And that's something that Sarge, that was involved with professional hockey with his sons before, he told me, he says, every little thing you do is going to be on the internet. It's going to be on, and we, it took me years to get used to every little thing that you do is in the media, and in juniors, it's not like that. So, it took a lot getting used to when you're used to, every little thing is in the media, and every little thing is being, because there's a fan base and so on. So it took me a few years to get used to that. I probably haven't really fully gotten used to that.
Yeah. With just everything being
every single thing is an issue. Every single thing is an issue. With juniors.
Sam. Yeah, Sam, so Sam put another comment. Could there be a future possibility of a merge with the FPHL and the SPHL? I'll tell you what, Sam, why don't you hit me up on Swan Hockey social media, just at Swan_hockey, and see if you could rally the troops, rally the fans, and maybe we'll get Don back here for an episode strictly on pro hockey. I'll try to convince Don to come back.
Okay.
And yeah, because obviously it's a little bit of a different podcast, because obviously there's the junior side of things, and then there's the to your point, like you said, everything out there with the pro side of things that people have questions for you and want to talk about that. So we could, I'm not against doing a pro episode. So I'll try.
I've spent a lot more time with junior hockey than I have with this, and I enjoyed junior hockey. I enjoyed the whole scope of it, and I still have a lot of friends in junior hockey that I think the world of. The people from the Hitmen and other people. I just had wonderful friendships with those people for decades, and great people, and so it's been fun dealing with them, and they're wonderful people. So I think there's a lot of great people in junior hockey that have been in it for a long time, and I enjoy dealing with that.
What do you think about the Junior Bruins being out of the NCDC? Did you ever think you'd see the day that happened? They were sold to the group in Westchester. So RC Lake is going to be the head coach of Westchester Wolves. They bought the Junior Bruins
former Syracuse Star.
What is that?
Former Syracuse Star.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so RC was back. What episode? RC was on the podcast, one of the first ones. Maybe I want to say maybe episode 4. I don't remember which episode it was, but RC was on. RC was on one of the very early episodes we did. So he's he's obviously was down in Richmond for a while, and
sure,
he's the head coach of Westchester now in the NCDC. They bought the Junior Bruin franchise, which I never thought I would see the day that the Junior Bruins weren't in the top division of the USPHL, just because they were always like a staple of the old EJ.
Yeah, they were the Masters. Of course, I've known them for like 30 years or maybe longer. That's we had a lot of meetings with them, a lot of things with them. It was a funny thing. When I first met RC, I had NHL players hanging around. So my first thing with him was he was going one-on-one with Timmy Conley, and he didn't know who Timmy Conley was. And it was kind of a trick, and because they don't expect an NHL player to be practicing with you. And and the other thing I did with Timmy, I had a goalie from Minnesota, and I said, I got this men's league guy that wants to work with you for a half an hour and shoot on you. And at the end of the session, I said, he's really not a men's league guy. And he says, I kind of figured that out. So it was,
That's funny.
yeah. So it's just, but they always worked out with us during the summer, and you never knew who was going to show up, and they would all practice right with our junior guys. So they would be, so it'd be a lot of fun. And I don't know. I think, they were basically the pillars of it, but of the league. So they're very, very good operators. I don't know what, I haven't talked to them, but I heard that, and I don't know what's behind it, but it's wish them the best of luck.
Yeah. Well, that league's going through so many changes right now, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. So I don't know if you saw, but there was 3 teams from the EHL that left and it was like 3 of the EHL's like top programs. They left the EHL. They just joined the NCDC. And from what I'm told by another team in the league, those 3 teams are allowed to charge players to play. They're like playing by EHL rules, but they're playing in the NCDC, which I don't know if it's crazy or brilliant. Obviously that might be what, maybe it is brilliant. Maybe that's what enabled those, what made those teams come over to the NCDC. And now the NCDC was able to just take 3 pieces from another league. It's just very, I've been saying a lot, like just very interesting times that we're in right now for junior hockey. But yeah, from what I'm told, those 3 teams are charging players to play in the NCDC. And if I'm not mistaken, they can also have unlimited 20-year-olds, unlike the rest of the league. And they can also have a larger protected list or roster size than the rest of the league.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
No. But I think it's, I did not, I was at the meeting in Detroit when they were turned down for tier 2 with all of with the masters and all the people that were, involved with the league. And we were in the NCDC at that time. And they were told prior to the meeting that they were going to be approved tier 2. And the North American League basically said that if you approve them, we're pulling out. So
that's crazy.
So I was at that meeting in Detroit. And that was when they pulled out of USA Hockey. And I told them that they shouldn't have. I didn't agree with anything that they were doing. I didn't think there was any advantage of doing what the North American League was doing. I told them that, and I told them not to change. They did ask for my advice what to do with the leagues out west, and I told them to expand and to take those teams, and it was worth $1 million to them. But then what they did was they did this thing, and it cost them $1 million. So it was a net zero, and I never was. My feeling is the North American League is not getting NHL draft picks. I mean, they used to, when they were tier 1, but they're getting 1 or 2. We got 1 or 2.
And they're usually goalies, right? Like North American League, like they're usually goalies.
It's under 3 or under 5 out of the.
I don't think there's any this year. I think there's. I think I heard that there was only 1 player with North American League ties that was drafted in the NHL this year.
And that's
1 kid that used to play in the North American League.
Right. And that's what you're going to have. So my feeling is that there should be, unless you're producing NHL draft picks, there should be a tuition. That's what I told them. And I know that they talked to people in the NHL office, Pat LaFontaine. They told them exactly what I told them. But it was funny. I was at a meeting in Boston, and they said, "Well, we pulled out of USA Hockey 2 weeks ago." And I said, Well, thanks for telling me because I'm running New York State USA Hockey. It's nice of you to let me know. So I resigned. I said I didn't want to, I didn't want to embarrass the people in New York. That my teams were not in USA Hockey, and I'm their junior hockey coordinator. So they didn't really understand all of this. I think either you have players who are going to be drafted. If you're not, then you should go into a pay for play model and try to provide the services for pay to play. And we had pay for play in the Toronto League. We had kids drafted going, obviously D1 go everything, and they paid a tuition. It didn't kill us. We did fine, with charging a tuition, and so did the Bruins, and so did the Hitmen, so did a lot of people. I mean, so
I remember like one of my last years as a junior, I think the Hitmen, yeah, like they were charging tuition, and I'm sure there was some, like, just like everywhere, like I'm sure there's some kids that weren't paying full price or weren't paying at all. Yeah. The rule was they were charging tuition, and I think it was like my second to last year junior. I think they sent like 22 or 25 guys Division I in 1 year.
Yeah.
Right. Like, which is and that was one of, and that was a team that I think guys were like, hey, yeah, I could play here instead of the USHL. No big deal. Because again, you're sending, if that's what the number was, if you're sending 22 or 25 guys Division I, like, yeah, like you don't need to go to USHL.
Well, I really felt, I really felt that was the right way to go. I didn't really agree with it. I think I was right. I think I told them to expand to the West Coast and to take those teams, and it was a divided thing. But the person running the league at that point listened to me, and he did it. There was some people against it, but they did listen to me. But then on the other aspect of non-tuition, they didn't listen. There was $150,000 subsidy to certain teams because of that. But to what benefit? I mean, I don't.
Yeah. Well, the way I see it from a hockey standpoint, like I think they tried it. I think they were trying to compete with the NA. It didn't work. I think they're trying it again now. It seems like they're kind of regrouping, and who knows, maybe it will happen this time. It seems, again, we're in interesting times. They're making changes. We'll see what happens. But I think the first go around, I think they tried to compete with the NA. It didn't work. So again, like you didn't move up the totem pole, right? So going from charging tuition to going to free, it didn't move you up the totem pole any. So why not charge tuition when it doesn't move you?
We talked about really a few minutes ago with the major junior and the USHL. If you're not in that realm of players, then those are all players that are not paying tuition. So if you're going to not charge tuition for the players, if you're not in that group of players, then you should be paying a tuition, and that goes for the North American League. It goes for the other leagues. There's no basic premise. Now, the North American League does have some places that draw a gate. There are other places that don't draw a gate where they have to subsidize it or have youth hockey subsidize it. Those are
right. Well, I think they're able to charge more for their youth hockey teams having that North American League team over them. And then what I was getting at, like, so like with the USPHL, then going in, the NCDC did, at the end of the day, it didn't move them up the totem pole any, but so hockey wise, going tuition free doesn't move them up the totem pole. But business wise, do you think that having that tuition free division enabled them to sell more premier franchises, elite franchises, have more players in the league paying, league fees, have more teams paying league dues, have more, I don't know if they're making money off their short insurance or not, who knows? But do you think having that tuition free division up top makes all of that go around? And business wise, maybe that was
I don't know. I don't think it really helped that much.
No.
I think they may say differently, but I don't think it helped that much. It's there are certain organizations that place people, certain ones that didn't, and charging kids each parent a tuition, a tax, That's not right either. Again, the players not um, are not they're not able to play for free. I mean, there should be a tuition involved. If they're not being drafted, there should be a tuition
I
involved.
mean, look, I'll take as much free hockey as possible. The more kids that can play free hockey, I'll take it. I understand what you're saying completely.
Well, no, I think it's
I'm
free.
just like, I'm happy it's happening.
But,
But
again, look at how they're playing free hockey. They're having 500 kids show up for a tryout when the team's
Right.
already picked. Okay, and that's encouraged by USA Hockey. And that's a fraud. Okay, I never did that. I had guys, 20 some odd players drafted in the NHL. I never had a phony tryout. Every tryout that I had, every year I did it, I was actually looking for players, and I picked players. So I never did that. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree.
No, I don't agree with that part of it at all. I mean, that's
and then charging kids because their parents because the team plays and they can't draw. Doesn't make sense to me either. So the guys that are legitimate players that have a chance to be drafted in the NHL, those guys should have free tuition. Guys that are not should pay a tuition, and there will be less of this. And you play where you think you can advance the most. And like you said earlier, which is actually very important, play where you fit in the best. Play where your certain skills and certain things that you have going for you are going to be exploited. People got to know what you bring to the table and exploit your skills, your strengths. That's probably the best advice I can give to anybody going. And I saw a lot of players take the wrong turn, even at the college level, and guys at the NHL level took the wrong turn, and it didn't work out as well as it should. So.
Yeah, no, some people could for sure be their own worst. I mean, some people take the wrong turn because they they don't know they made a mistake. Other people, they just refuse to be open to a different perspective. And they're their own worst enemy, which is sad. I mean, I tell people too, like, you can ask 100 people, you might get 99 people telling you the right thing, but if you look hard enough, you will find the one person that tells you what you want to hear, and or whatever. So it's important to be open-minded and to, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're at an hour here. If anybody has any, last minute questions for Don or myself, put them in there now. Cause we're going to be calling this here. We'll be right back at it next Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Every Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Check out swanhockey.com. Make sure you join the Discord. It's free. Watch these podcasts. It's free. Just trying to put a lot of this stuff is, trying to knock down a lot of the walls that exist and open things up, and, let you guys, just open everything up. So, check that stuff out. Discord's very important right now, especially as we're getting ready to launch the Swan Hockey digital Web3 experience. Discord's going to play a major role in that. So, I highly suggest you hop into Discord now. If Discord is new to you, don't worry about it. We will help you out. That's what community is for. That's the focus right now is the Swan Hockey community. Try new things. Hop into Discord. Last call for any last minute comments, questions, concerns. Sam Wentz, hit me up on social media. We'll maybe we'll see if we can get Don back here for a pro episode. But don't forget to like and subscribe, share the video, tell your friends. Don, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and I know everybody else does as well. Don, you have a great night. Everybody have a great night, and I will see you guys soon.